Hi, and welcome to the Badass Breastfeeding Podcast, co-hosted by Abby Thiering, the Badass Breastfeeder, and Dianne Cassidy, IBCLC.
Hey, welcome to episode 15, I think it is. Can't count anymore, but 15, and we are going to talk about nursing aversions. And I'm Dianne.
I'm Abby.
And here we are. So tell us about nursing aversions. What are we going to learn?
Okay, let me tell you about the last 6 years of my life. So, here's my second aversion.
Mommy.
Yes. I got pregnant with Jack. I got pregnant with Exley when Jack was almost, he was a little over 2 when I got pregnant with Exley. And I was like, okay, I'm going to breastfeed. I want a tandem nurse. I really, really wanted a tandem nurse. I know a lot of people, most people, I think, find themselves in this situation. You know, they think, oh God, I'm still breastfeeding. I didn't know I was going to be breastfeeding this long. And now I'm pregnant. I don't want to wean. What do I do? I had a very unusual situation where I got so comfortable with breastfeeding Jack and I really wanted to continue, but I also really wanted the experience of tandem nursing. Mm-hmm. So I got pregnant knowing that I wanted to continue. I got pregnant on purpose. So I knew I was pregnant and then I knew I was still breastfeeding and I didn't want to stop breastfeeding and I wanted to have the tandem nursing experience.
Okay.
So I was like 32, 34 weeks pregnant with Exley and everything had been fine. And Jack had, you know, your milk supply drops mm-hmm. and Jack had kind of stopped nursing a little bit and it was less frequent. And I was like, oh my God, he's going to wean. Oh my God. I was so sad. But he didn't. He kept, he did it a couple times a day. And then towards the end, he started nursing more. I feel like he just kind of, he could feel the kind of, the anxiety build in the house over, a new baby was coming, it starts to get closer. Everyone's kind of getting excited and he could feel the excitement. So he was nursing more. And I was sitting in the rocking chair one day breastfeeding him, and I was overcome with this intense and almost completely unbearable feeling of, you can't even describe it. Mm-hmm. Anyone who's experienced this knows that there are no words for it. We use words like heebie-jeebies, cockroaches crawling on your skin, a desire to run through a brick wall, anxiety and rage and sadness and madness all in one emotion. Mm-hmm. And it's all a physical and emotional thing and it came on in a snap of a finger. And I thought, holy balls, what is this? And it was intense. And I thought, oh God, I have to unlatch him. I unlatched him and it was gone, completely gone. And from that moment on, whenever I latched him on, I had this intense reaction to him. And it was horrible. And so now I have this new baby who I'm trying to breastfeed. And then I have this older toddler who is like, now there's all this colostrum and there's new milk and he's all excited. And it was every time he came, I started to have like PTSD because he would walk into the room and I would just feel like, like I could see him coming towards me and I'd be like, I wanted to just put on one of those, like, Madonna has those like metal bras.
Yeah.
I'd like to put on like some armor and I'm like, oh my God, please don't ask to nurse. Oh God, please. And, so then the horrible thing happened of where I was like, I just cannot manage this all. Because before that, I had never, ever drawn a single boundary with breastfeeding with him. I didn't have to. He was my only child. It never even occurred to me to be like, oh, no, not right now, mm-hmm. and then he'll just live. It just never occurred to me. And so now I'm like, oh my God, I cannot breastfeed him on demand anymore. I can't. I have to create boundaries. And long story short, it was an awful, awful, awful few months of trying to work out that with him. But I had to put up some serious, boundaries with him because I couldn't handle it on demand like that anymore.
Yeah.
And people say like, oh, I have to wean and I don't know what's wrong with me. I think I'm going crazy, because this isn't being talked about. It's like not something that you hear a lot about. And it's real. Mm-hmm. It's very real. It's a very real thing. And I think there's a lot, it's debatable of what causes it. People say, I think it happens a lot. It happens a lot more It happens a lot more frequently in pregnancy because your hormones are going crazy.
Yeah, hormones.
Then there's people that say, well, maybe your biological clock is kind of, it's is tapping on the face of the watch going like, this is a giant child, time to wean, kind of relating it to, I'm not saying that you should wean, and that there's any time that you should wean, because I'm still breastfeeding Jack and he's 6 years old. So there. But there's a lot of people say, you think about an ape, like you think about an ape with like a big, kind of like a bigger toddler, her own toddler, mm-hmm. and you'll see them just like they'll come up to nurse and they'll nurse for like a minute or something, and she just whacks them, just like whacks them off. She's like, get off, get off, done. You're done. And that's kind of like what it becomes, is like they get a little older, breastfeeding doesn't feel the same, and maybe it's a little annoying, or maybe you're having nursing aversion, whatever, and it's perfectly fine to be like, okay, enough. I'll see you again in a few hours.
Right.
Because it's really, and this is what I hear a lot too, is women are like, I said no, and they just cried and cried and cried, and I can't handle it. And I hear you. Mm-hmm. That is exactly what we went through. And I couldn't really go back because I was nursing this newborn, and I like physically could not handle nursing him. I mean, Jack would cry, not my newborn, the Jack, the older one. Mm-hmm. I couldn't handle it. And he cried one day until he threw up.
Oh my gosh.
And that's like when you're just like, okay, I'm the shittiest mother on the planet, right? Like I'm just the worst. No. But
you also, you have to do what you
have to
for you.
Yeah,
you have to have the boundaries, and you have to do if this is not working for you, how is it going to work for him?
And this is when we talk about, when is it time to wean? Because people will say, when do I wean? You say, when it's no longer working for you and your child.
Right.
And I didn't wean Jack, but I cut it down to the point that I could handle it. Mm-hmm. And I still nurse him to sleep at night. He nurses one time a day at night to go to sleep. And I chew on my lips, and I like dig my finger into my cheek, and I do all of these things so I can get through those 2 minutes. And it, okay, I manage it and that's it. But if it's no longer working, then that's when you think about
right
how it's maybe the end.
Or you find a way to make it work.
Yeah. I actually wrote a blog post, like 8 ways to cope with nursing aversion, and like everything crazy from like, and it's also stupid because, like, obviously if you're stressed out and you're tired, it's so much worse. Mm-hmm. But what mom is not stressed out and tired?
Right.
So, it's like things like that. Well, you need more sleep. Well, come on. You can't say that to people. But I notice the days that I'm stressed out, especially now, because now Exley is over 3 years old, and I'm starting to feel it with him too. And there's times where like they're both just like getting into it, and I'm so stressed out, and Exley's like, booby, booby, booby. And I'm like, I physically cannot right now. Mm-hmm. Like I physically cannot get myself to pull my shirt down for you. I can't. And he has to have his big meltdown. He has to have a big crying fit. And I say, no, I'll hold you. I'll do this. Would you like a snack? Are you thirsty? And I try to, meet his need, mm-hmm. but I say no.
And sometimes you just have to. I mean, you're always going to have a situation where your kid is not going to be happy.
Exactly.
With the choice that you've made for him.
And there's something about breastfeeding that just makes it like,
yeah,
it's like, and then it becomes like personal between you and your child or something. It's like saying no to candy is, it's like, okay, no, I said no. And then you say no to breastfeeding, and it's like, so you feel so much more guilty for some reason. You worked so hard for it. You worked so hard to get there, and then it's like, well, now it's turning its back on me. It's causing me to, it's making me hate it. And it's not fair.
It's not.
But you're not crazy. And nursing aversion is a very, very real thing. And that ape that's like throwing her, tossing her little apelet. I don't know what they're called. What do they call?
Well, just don't toss your child out of a tree.
No, don't toss your child. But you could say not right now.
Right. And distract them with something else. Like that's when people do ask me about weaning, when it's time for them, that is one of the things that I talk to them about is a lot of it. It's not at this age. It's not about the nutrition necessarily. No. It's the comfort and it's what they're losing when they give up that nursing. So you have to replace that. You can't just like, no, you're done and go on and, go talk to your friend on the phone. Like you have to do something and read a book and snuggle or cuddle or whatever it is that's going to meet that need for them at that time.
And you have to let them have their feelings. Mm-hmm. It's so hard to watch your child have a meltdown and want something that you have wanted so bad in the past. Something that you, like I said, worked so hard for and something that became so important for you guys. Breastfeeding, it's so important, such an important thing between a mom and a child. And then to have to say no to it is awful. Yeah. And so, that you're going to feel awful, but your child's going to feel awful, but they're going to be okay. You're there. And again, you could say, you say all these things and this is what I did. we're not going to do booby is what we call it in my house. Very sophisticated. And, we're not going to do booby, but, I'm going to hold you. I can hold you or I can rock you or I can put you in the carrier and, try to do something to hold him close. Or I went out when I was trying to create all these boundaries with Jack, I went out and I went to the store and I bought every piece of junk I could find. At the grocery store. I'm like, oh, you like salami? Here's all kinds of salami whenever you want it. Here's here's your chocolate chip granola bar. And I'm not saying, bribe your child, but if you're desperate the people who are experiencing nursing aversion understand me right now. Mm-hmm. That if you need to create a new routine in your house, then these things will work for creating distraction. And they work really well, and they're still going to have the meltdowns, but eventually the routine will change.
Right. And they get past it.
They do.
And it's not the end of the world. And if you are experiencing a nursing aversion, I would definitely it's going to take you by surprise. Most likely. Still talk to somebody about it. Talk to another breastfeeding mom because maybe she's been through the same thing. And it's not talked about. Nobody says anything. And again, you don't want to say anything about it because you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm going to look like a bad mom. And, it's a really weird feeling to have when you go from feeling like you're doing the best thing to nurturing your child to saying, I can't stand this anymore. That's a lot to consider all of a sudden.
Yes.
I remember, and I don't know if you can put this under the umbrella of a nursing aversion, but it certainly seemed like it to me. But I was very early in. So probably still, I'm sure, I know, still dealing with the hormones of having this baby with my first one. And I remember latching him and just going, oh my God, I can't stand this. I can't stand it. I don't want to do this. I can't believe I'm going to have to do this for how many months or whatever. I can't do it. And it just, the feel of it, and I just didn't like it. And I tell people all the time, I was not a happy breastfeeder in the beginning. I really was not. It just had to force myself every time in the beginning to really make it work. And it was really hard. It really is. If you're not feeling it, it's hard.
Yeah. And who knows? And because we talk about breastfeeding aversion or nursing aversion. And what is that, it's really you're the one who has to decide if this is what you're experiencing. Mm-hmm. Because, again, like we said, it's really common in pregnant women, but it happens to women of all at all stages in their breastfeeding. And, maybe you're, like you said, you don't know if it's called nursing aversion for you, or if it was just, who knows? This is not the point.
Right.
Is that breastfeeding can be really awful sometimes. And like, we're not allowed to talk about that because it's like, well, we're breastfeeding advocates. We're supposed to try to help people choose breastfeeding and see how awesome breastfeeding is. And that's fine. And that's cool. Let's do that. Except that if we don't try to tell people the whole story, then we're not really helping anybody.
Right. But it's, just like anything else in life, if we're going to normalize this, like we talk about in every stinking podcast that we do, how important it is to normalize it, then let's put it out there like everything else. There's certain things that we love to do that sometimes we don't like to do.
Yeah.
There's plenty of things. We could put sex in that category. You could put eating in that category. You can put sleeping in that category. Like whatever. That you love it, but there are some days where you're like, I want nothing to do with this right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just the same thing. It's where it is. I personally, like you said, there's like, we don't know what causes it or whatever, but I do think hormones play a huge role in all the fields. And that's, you have to just consider, like, is there something going on there with your hormones that would bring this on? Who knows? Yeah,
and that's the other thing is when I talk about this stuff on the page, hormones and who knows, nursing aversion, we're experiencing this, and people are like, well, it's time to wean.
Maybe not.
And this is like another thing I think where people don't want to share these things because people are always quick to be like, well, it sounds like it's time to wean. Mm-hmm. Sounds like you need to listen to your body. It sounds like your body is telling you to wean. Okay. Well, how do you know? I mean, how do you know what my body's telling me to do? And, the bring up hardships around breastfeeding because people are so quick to tell us to wean. And I do think that that's why women stop talking about these things so much. So be careful who you talk to. You might not want to talk to your coworker who doesn't have any kids. Like, right. Oh, I'm having this really hard time. Because they'll be like, well, why don't you just wean then?
Right.
And, you're like, well, I'm just, I've said this before. When you have problems at your job or you have problems and you're married, people never say, well, you should just quit. No, I guess you should just get divorced.
Right.
Nobody says that about these things. But when it comes to breastfeeding, it's just like, well, you should quit. And I don't know what the deal is with that. But, when you're talking about these kinds of things, and it's very frustrating to hear this. People talk about these things because they want to work them out. They want, it's like, I want to be breastfeeding and I'm having a hard time and I need to kind of, figure out what I want to do, or just like, just process the situation with someone.
Mm-hmm.
And so the best person to do that with is another breastfeeding mom.
Right.
Because they are not going to be like, just wean. Hopefully they won't say that because they'll know it's not that easy. But I think that's why people end up that's why a lot of these things don't get talked about, because it's hard to talk about them with people who don't understand.
I agree. And sometimes we automatically will go to, the people that you talk to every day. Maybe it's your mom, maybe it's your sister, or whatever. Mm-hmm. And if they are people that didn't breastfeed or that breastfed in an era where, information was very, very different, they might go out right ahead and tell you, oh, it's, you should just wean. Sometimes it's better to talk to somebody that isn't so close to your life, because those people want to fix your life. If you complain about something, they want to fix it.
Yeah.
And it's the same with, a partner. It's the same with everything. I mean, it's just, that's how it is. And no matter what I say to my husband, he wants to try to fix it. Like, he could have nothing to do with it. And he really has to, like, mentally tell himself, I just need to listen to her complain because she doesn't need me to fix this problem. Because I've said to him a zillion times, I don't want you to fix this. I want you to listen. And that's it. And
especially men.
Yeah.
I think that's a thing with men. It's like you're telling them something, and so they're like they automatically think, okay, this is a problem I need to fix. It's like something in the brain chemistry or something.
Yeah.
And it's normal. It's normal for them to have that thought. So then you're like, okay, so just listen. Don't.
And you get that same thing like when you tell your pediatrician, if you go to your pediatrician and say, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. The baby was up 4 times during the night nursing. They're going to try to fix that problem for you because you're complaining to them about it.
Yeah.
And it's a normal complaint. Absolutely. But if you don't want to hear them say to you, you have to wean your child at night because they're 6 months and shouldn't be breastfeeding at night anymore, which we know is not necessarily the case. But that's going to be the response more than likely. And if that's not what you want to hear, then you can't say that to them. You have to really kind of think about who it is that you're saying this to. But most of the time, another breastfeeding mom is going to understand.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's a very, very difficult thing. And you're not a bad mom by doing it. You're not a bad mom for saying, I
hate breastfeeding.
Right. It's like, I hate it right now. I just do not want anything to do with this.
Yeah. If you hate it, and that's the thing with, there's that saying, don't quit on a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're having a bad day, try to get through it. If you're having a series of like several mostly bad days, well, then talk some more about it. And if you come to the decision to wean, it's okay.
Right.
That's okay. And if you decide not to wean, then you can find ways to deal with nursing aversion. It really sucks and it's really hard. And, most of the things that I've focused on over the years is distraction. I mean, I lay down with Jack to go to sleep at night, and I don't think I've actually ever said this publicly. But I lay him down and I put like a little washcloth over his face. And I look at my phone. He's 6. He knows what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
He's just like, here, he hands me the washcloth. I latch him on. I put it over his eyes so that the phone glare doesn't go in his eyes. And I breastfeed him I tell him 2 minutes. And he says, okay. And I open my phone and I go to the most controversial thing I can find. So I'll go to like the White House Facebook page.
Hilarious.
And open up some story and just read the comments. It's just, it's awesome because people are on the internet. Like, there are some comment threads on the internet that are just super winners and they're very distracting. You can't, you're reading, you're going, oh my God, I can't stop reading this. It's like a train wreck.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's one of the ways. And again, like, if you have to say no, night feedings, probably like going to bed and waking up and in the night, those are like the really most important to your kid. Probably those are the hardest ones.
It's the hardest to give up for them.
Yeah. And so if you need to cut down on your nursing sessions, start with like, during the day, cut one out and let your child have a chocolate chip cookie or chocolate chip granola bar. If that's not your thing, then choose something else. But it's like, oh God, oh sugar. And it's okay. It's okay to give them something that's really exciting and new. This is how you create like new routines. It's like, here's a new exciting thing. Okay. Well, now I'm not thinking about that anymore. And, if you don't want them to have, a slice of like French silk pie every day, then don't give that to them. Give them something else. Give them a new exciting, treat of some other kind.
Right.
And then, another thing that was working really well for us at the time which is hard with a new baby, but if you want to cut out those sessions, getting them to go outside, like get up and go outside and, get them moving outside, which will distract them as well. Don't hang out in that like favorite nursing chair, while you're in this transition, because, you sit down and then, here's the routine. So then here comes the big kid who wants to nurse for the 50th time today, stay out of that chair, kind of create like a new routine. And so distracting yourself and distracting your child, and then lots and lots of tears on both ends.
And I was just going to say that, if you are in a position where you can go outside instead of, if they're like, oh, hey, if your child wants to nurse and you're like, let's go swing on the swings. Let's go, like something else that's just a distraction for them.
Yeah. And fun for them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, yeah, so you can, and then you cut down if you get rid of one feeding during the day, that gives you time to kind of have like a sense of your body back. And you can also, the thing that we did too, that really works, I think was working, was you can say, okay, well, take a couple other nursing sessions during the day and cut them down. Cause before you were nursing just endlessly until they fell asleep or until they got up again or whatever. Mm-hmm. You can say, okay, well, I'm going to set a timer for 2 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever you can handle. Or, sit down and I'll sing a song to you. And then when the song is over or when the buzzer goes off or whatever, then we're done.
Right.
And so they get to latch on. They know that you're not going to say no. But then it's shorter for your sanity.
Right. And I tell people to do that, like with, when they're trying to wean down anyway, because you can't, it's really dangerous to just say, okay, I'm done with this and totally stop. That's dangerous.
Yeah. That's traumatic.
Yeah. It's traumatic for everybody.
Totally
involved.
Traumatic.
Yeah. So that's a great way to do it, is to put some kind of time limit on it. Again, the limits, and limits are really hard as a mom, no matter how old your kid is. Limits are really hard. Those boundaries are very hard, but putting that into place earlier, if you're really feeling it, does not hurt anything. It could help you feel a lot better and enjoy your time with your child.
Oh my God. And this is like one of the things that I was saying, like right after Exley was born. I was like, I have my major regret of that whole thing was not putting in boundaries before Exley came. Mm-hmm. Because then I was hitting the roof. I didn't know I was going to hit the roof. Who knows? Right. I didn't know breastfeeding aversion was going to like come on to me. I had no idea. And then there's a new baby in the house and Jack's reacting to that. And then I'm saying no to, there was so much for him to deal with. If I had my regret and if I could do it again, I would start setting boundaries with him before I got pregnant and before Exley came along, so that he was more adjusted to that before the other change came, which was the new baby. Mm-hmm. And so now, if you've got a child that's like, what would you say, like over 1? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Totally, limits are fine for them to start, Yeah. They'll get it, and it's going to be upsetting. You're going to watch your child have lots of tantrums and lots of cries, but it's all about learning,
Yeah. And it's okay. It really is. It's okay.
Yeah.
And, once the new routine is in place, then you're going to be in a different place with it too.
Yeah, I thought Jack would never. There was a point where he was like, he would asking me a million times during the day if he could nurse. And then, so like maybe once a day I would say yes and let him latch on. He's so old now. He like doesn't even know how to latch on. Like he just like it was like, it was a time where I could say yes. I was like, here's a time where I can say yes, latch on. He would be like, okay, blah, and then walk away. But he doesn't even, he doesn't, oh, he's behind me. I didn't even know it. Yeah. He doesn't even ask anymore. Just for say that again. That was funny.
Can I have Booby?
You have to say it loud.
Can I have Booby?
He heard me saying it, so now he's asking. That's funny.
That was funny.
He doesn't even ask during the day now. He probably doesn't even know that he doesn't ask during the day now because it's just totally normal around here now.
Can I have some Booby?
Yeah, you're funny. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, totally new routine around here. And it was hard work, but you can do it.
And obviously he's fine. Like he's
totally fine.
Yeah, he's fine. So I think that we should maybe in another podcast go over the 8 steps, or maybe in 2 more podcasts. Who knows? Go over the 8 steps from your blog. So that
feeling. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I can. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think we should give our listeners something to really, put in their toolkit for it.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I'm adding it to the list right now.
And does anybody have anything else they want to add to the list? Please.
Yeah. You need to email us, and I'll add it to the list.
Yeah. So
it's that easy.
Because
I really have the list right here. I can add that.
So email us, badassbreastfeeder@gmail.com, so that we can, get stuff on there. And we would love to hear your feedback on it, for sure.
Absolutely.
All right. So more on nursing aversion to come in the future. So definitely keep hold of that. Put that in the back of your brain and in the back of your mommy brain. And
that's totally going to get lost back there.
I know, but it'll pop out eventually. And we'll be all over it. So I guess that's it for this installment of Nursing Aversions.
Bye.
Bye.